Hello everybody, this is Lara with your end of the week analysis for US oil for the trading week ending Friday 31st of July. I'm still expecting oil has found a major sustainable low. My analysis for oil is now very bullish. For the short term, it looks like a rounded top has formed and now a pullback may begin to gather strength. Up until this week, I've had 3, then 2 and now 1 daily chart for oil. So the alternates have been eliminated. We're left with the main daily wave count. I expect that a pullback may now begin to develop some strength. The target is 32.67 for this pullback. If that target is wrong though, it may be not low enough because the first major pullback in a new trend for oil is usually quite deep. Elliott Wave analysis first, classic analysis last. The simplest Elliott Wave structure is a 5-step pattern. Here it is for a bear market, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Flip it on its head and for a bull market, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I am expecting oil is in a 5-step pattern upward and it has to meet all core Elliott Wave rules. Here's the end of supercycle 1, the end of supercycle 2, a counter trend movement with an ongoing bull market for oil. Supercycle 3 needs to move beyond the end of 1 and it needs to move far enough above 1 to allow supercycle 4 to then unfold and remain above first wave price territory. So you see this analysis for oil is very, very bullish. Supercycle 3 may only subdivide as an impulse and within it no second wave correction may move beyond the start of any of the first waves below the invalidation point. Let's take a look at the weekly chart where this slowed down here. There's this point down here. Here's the end of a corrective structure for supercycle 2 and the start of an impulse for supercycle 3. And the labels of the impulse will be at cycle degree 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And they have to meet all of those core Elliott Wave rules. 2 may not move beyond the start of 1. 3 must move beyond 1. 4 may not move into 1. 3 may not be the shortest actionary wave. Actionary waves are 1, 3 and 5. 4 can't move into 1 and then 5, it's not a rule, it's a guideline. 5 usually moves beyond the end of 3 to avoid a truncation. A simple 5-step pattern. I expect that cycle wave 1 is incomplete. I could move the degree of labelling within this up 1 degree, but when I look at it at the monthly chart level and consider how high it needs to go, I think that cycle wave 1 is probably incomplete. So let's take a look at the sole remaining daily chart now from this low here, this point here. This is the main daily wave count. It looks at an incomplete structure for cycle wave 1 unfolding as an impulse with primary 1 and now primary 2 to continue and then 3, 4, 5. That simplest 5-step pattern. This complicated bit comes with when we move into corrections because there are only 2 motive structures, an impulse or a diagonal, but there are more than 23 possible corrective structures. And Elliott Wave allows for that great variety of how price moves when it's in a correction or a consolidation. The structure here for primary wave 2 is considered an expanded flat correction, labelled A, B, C, subdividing 3, 3, 5. Within an expanded flat, and this is a fairly common Elliott Wave corrective structure, B moves beyond the start of A. Within an expanded flat, B is a 1.05 or longer length of A, and then C usually reaches 1.618 the length of A, hence the target calculation. C at intermediate degree needs to subdivide as a 5-wave structure. At minor degree that will be labelled 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The third wave may now begin to develop some strength as this pullback begins to develop some strength to the downside. If this target is wrong, it may not be low enough. If this target is reached and price keeps falling, then the 0.382 Fibonacci ratio and eventually the 0.618 Fibonacci ratios of intermediate wave 1 would be reasonable targets for this pullback labelled primary wave 2 to end. Primary 2 may not move beyond the start of primary wave 1. At the weekly chart level, price is continuing to find resistance about 42. It looks like it's forming a slow, curved, rounded top, a pretty common pattern, and I'd expect a pullback now to begin to develop some strength. Volume is light as price continues higher. ADX is declining. A possible trend change has not been indicated. The trend of this downward trend is still indicated from ADX. This is based on a 14-week average, and it hasn't managed to caught up with the fact that we have a low in place and now probably an upward trend. On balance volume, the last signal it gave was bullish, breaking above resistance. It's a fairly weak signal though. RSI in neutral territory, plenty of room for price to rise or fall, and stochastics overbought. Slightly clearer at the daily chart level. For Friday, a downward session with some push from volume moving price lower. At these highs here between price and RSI, there's some bearish divergence. That, in conjunction with declining ATR as price was rising, tells us to expect, which would be really normal after the strong rise, a reasonable pullback, or possibly also, but less likely, quite a very time-consuming consolidation to relieve extreme conditions. And it's a normal behaviour of price after it's had a good strong movement up. If this measuring gap is closed, then I'd look out for support back down here at this swing low. But for the short term, I'd look for support at this last measuring gap back here. ADX is indicating a downward trend now at the daily chart level. That supports the view that price is going to move into a deeper pullback. On balance volume has a really strong range. Watch this one carefully next week. If it breaks below support, then we may see an increase in downward momentum as a pullback begins to develop a bit of strength. If it breaks above resistance, that would be concerning for the short-term Elliott Wave count, and we may see price move back up higher, but there is really strong resistance above, so it may not get that far. RSI in neutral territory, stochastics in neutral territory, and MACD bearish. That's all from me this week with your US oil analysis. I hope all our members are having an awesome weekend.